Alright. MaxPax for Storm Gaming in the bottom left side of the map. The mysterious Danish prince. The man who was inventing and popularizing really good PvT openings when he was just 12, 13 years old. And now, of course, considered by some to be the greatest Protoss in the world at the moment. I still think Hero holds that over him just because, of course, Hero's, performance at the biggest events. But MaxPax is also a former PiGFest champion. And he's 2-0'd a classic earlier. He's now in the winner's match against Dark in the top right side, who also 2-0'd Maru. So both players, I mean, we knew they were the favorites coming into this. They are what makes this the group of death, and it's always exciting to see them go head to head.
And it's exciting because of the format you're using, because it's not one of these moments where, all right, whoever wins is going to get a better seed into the playoffs, but they should both advance. No, only the winner is going to advance into the upper bracket. And that means they will have 2 lives in those playoffs that are starting in a week from now, something along those lines. I know you have the TOMC to worry about.
Yeah, so it's going to be, I guess, 2 weeks from now. There's going to be like a 1 weekend break in the middle where we're going to be running a bunch of show matches with players who didn't qualify as well as some of the players who did, where the community will get a chance to play against them. Big part of PiGFest for us is realizing that pro Starcraft's good, but also the community is what makes it possible and what fund these tournaments and stuff. So we basically try to arrange matches where, fun challenges, put pro gamers in weird environments, 1v3ing, 1v4ing community members, playing different maps with all sorts of customizations on them, getting maybe a certain nostalgia kind of vibe going with a few certain show matches. I'll announce everything in the coming days, but we've already locked in a few players, and I think people will be very excited to play on that. So at least that'll keep the hype going for PiGFest in the in-between weekend while the TLMC happens, and then the following weekend we'll have the big playoffs where it's going to be a crazy playoff. 3 days, best of 7s until the finals, which is best of 9. And as you were talking about, people spawning in the upper bracket. Dude, Dark does just not care about MaxPax progress. Max just straight up denied a mineral patch for like 20 seconds, and Dark didn't even try to counter micro it.
That's the meme that we saw the other day on Reddit, where it's like low-level players like, don't worry about the probe, doesn't hurt me. And then the mid guys are like, oh, I can't let him occupy my mineral patch. And then the absolute pro gamers, the cool guy with the hoodie, is like, don't worry about the probe, it does not hurt me. Like, technically, you should worry about it a little bit, but Dark's just like, mate, if this makes you happy, all that clicking to deny 10, 15 minerals, go ahead.
This is actually hurting him a lot more in this scenario because it actually bounced a worker off. He's got triple stack workers on the middle patch, and he's only got 1 on that patch that got denied. So that, unless he fixes that by moving some drones around to like build buildings or run away from Adept or an Oracle, he's just going to be down on mining for the rest of the game. Like, one of his drones is basically working at half speed. So that actually adds up a lot. It's these little inefficiencies that allow MaxPax Hero to very often get ahead against Dark in the early game. I mean, we saw Dark really tight on his openings versus Maru, not getting supply blocked or anything like that, but he's going to need to play extra tight against MaxPax. Oh, he does get a probe with the Zergling, nicely done, and blocks the Adepts relatively well, but oh, they shade to the other side, and that's a lot of damage. 3 drones going down. Those drones need to get out of there. Staying way too long is Dark. Dark did win the coin flip, by the way, so he's got the server advantage, but just unprepared there. Expecting a Zergling to deny, your opponent there, that was a bit sloppy. He needed to run the drones. Losing 4 workers is bad. On the other hand, the Adept went down, which means it's harder for MaxPax to secure a quick third.
Oracle is already heading towards the other side of the map. Spore Crawler not quite done yet. MaxPax might just go for drones here. I mean, 2 queens obviously will have decent damage. All right, that's only 2. Normally, I would say this was a good trade for Dark because he did so much damage to the Oracle, but because he already lost 4 drones earlier, I do think it hurts him a bit more. Because obviously your worker count is so incredibly important in this phase in the game. MaxPax ends up losing a worker, but does manage to warp in that Nexus. So overall, I think a very, very solid start for Max. Just excellent Adept movement, man. It's silly, right? Because everybody opens up with a couple of Adepts, everybody makes a couple Oracles, and then you look at MaxPax and where everybody else finds a drone or a couple links, he just casually finds 4 drones. His Adept movement is so good. That's a pretty early Roach Warren on the side of Dark, and there is already some creep heading towards the other side of the map. Could be a lot of early game aggression coming out of Dark here.
Ling's coming forward on that third. Oracle's there, though. This is the Oracle that tried to dive back in on the third, but it did take a lot of damage doing it. Survived on 5 life, and we all know what happens, guys. A good Protoss player like MaxPax, he takes care of his soldiers. If you really work hard to harass as an Oracle, he'll give you a good retirement. You only defend. And don't get me wrong, if the Zerg decides to bring Queens or Hydras across the map, it's going to be a kind of rough retirement. But at least for this stage, as long as he keeps that Oracle at home, very little chance of it going down. Dark building Overlords before he hits the supply block, but he does need to hold that drone key down. He's going Roaches right now. 41 workers. My boy is walking Queens across this map. This is an all-in.
Yeah, but I feel like MaxPax is already picking up on this because he's got the revelation there. He sees not a single drone in the natural. He sees no Spore Crawler. This should make all the alarm bells go off. I'd love a backup pylon in the natural, and I'd love a couple cannons. I really think that a cannon or two is very useful here. I think the MaxPax should stop building workers and just get batteries, cannons, because Dark is as committed as you can be. This is of hatchery tech. Imagine a world where there was a Dark Shrine pick. We have seen Dark Shrines in these scenarios. I think the most famous moment ever was Trap against Raynor in the Grand Finals of TSL. There is no Dark Shrine though, and MaxPax does have very few battle units, doesn't have cannons. This is still going to be very hard for Max.
Dark was a little supply block, so he couldn't morph Ravagers until now. That is unfortunate, because if he had Ravagers biling down the battery already, he'd already be in there killing everything. But now he has to wait for those Ravagers. The Lings are going to try to go in. Got to be careful. The Oracles, not to mention the Stasis Trap, going to work as a bit of a force field. Bile's trying to come down on those Stalkers and batteries. Queens marching forward. The Oracles do take out one of the Queens along with the help of the Stalkers. Nice positioning by MaxPax, but he's out of battery healing, and he's going to try and evacuate. The Lings are actually out, which means MaxPax saves his units. Gets away from the third base. Dark begins droning and building Queens. Dude, one of my biggest criticisms of this build is Dark is normally so slow to drone up out of it and build Queens, but this is perfect. I don't know how Dark does this, where in the weekly cups it feels like he's so sloppy, but he does so well in these bigger online tournaments where it feels like he's just planned everything out so well.
Yep, he is going to get the Nexus, he's going to get the batteries, he's going to get the pylons. Only losing 3 workers there, by the way, is quite good. And Dark's like, you know what, if your Oracles are not here, perhaps I can make some magic happen. But I don't think he should throw away everything at this point. MaxPax still has a worker lead, even if it's only on 2 bases. So obviously some oversaturating. It's an interesting game at this point. Like, Dark technically gets what he wanted. He got the Nexus, he got the pylon, got a couple workers, but... you know, Blink is done, +1 is done, Oracles is still alive, at least some of them. It's good for Dark, but it's far from over in my eyes.
No, absolutely. I mean, Dark always has trouble droning out of this, and he did build extra Queens behind it, like I said, and started droning earlier than normal, which is so much better, because I've seen him do this, get an advantage, it seems like, but just fail to capitalize on it. This time, he was quick to transition. Problem is, he's playing MaxPax, and MaxPax, the moment he defended, he's back out here on the front with 17 Blink Stalkers. There's no answer to this. This is actually... this is crazy. Like, he has to just slow it down with Bile. Dark can't fight this.
Yep. You have a couple Lings, you have Queens, and you have Corrosive Biles to zone these Stalkers away. He's going to drop the Hydralist then, and it's going to be hard for Max to eventually fight a bunch of Hydras, but it's going to take a while before these Hydras can stand and battle these Stalkers, because the Stalkers already have +1. They've got Blink. Hydras will come out with no upgrades. Dark now forced to make 9 more Roaches. Roaches without their speed upgrade, also not very useful. And this is just where MaxPax should be able to extract max value out of these Stalkers. And this is annoying, right? Because Dark is just going to be forced to lose units over and over and over again. The only thing he can try to do, to the best of his own abilities, is keep these Stalkers away from hatcheries, from the drones, and hope that, you know, we can limit it to losing some creep tumors and a couple of units here and there.
Third base is back up, and now he's got a worker lead, does MaxPax. He's got that upgrade advantage, of course, with +1 this whole time. Roach Ravager tries to chase, but Roach Ravager is not the army you need against this. Ling's trying to be mixed in. I love the way MaxPax rotated, so he's not pushing up a ramp right now. Blinking back, does eat a Bile, loses 1 Stalker, but the unit's lost tab. It was even not too long ago. Now, a 600 resource advantage for the Protoss player. And Dark is just trapped, making Roach Ravager Zergling on 58 workers. It feels like MaxPax has funneled him into an all-in. Earlier today, we were talking about how sometimes players do force Dark kind of all in. But wait, are we cornering ourselves? I mean, I think there's enough Stalkers to maybe just win the fight anyway. The Oracles turn on their lasers. Roach Ravager, Ling, Bane, or just Zergling, I should say, trying to take care of the Stalkers. Weird positioning for MaxPax. He's going to lose quite a few Stalkers, but the Oracles do add a fair bit of damage.
You have a couple Zealots, I believe, getting on top of the third base, but Dark does have an answer for those with a few of the Queens that were still there and a couple of the Hydras that spawn. I mean, Dark did about as good as he could there because MaxPax walked himself into a trap, but a couple of the Corrosive Biles really did some decent friendly fire. First on the Roaches and the Ravagers, later on the Zerglings. I do think it was a tiny mistake of Max to walk into that corner, but he sort of got away with it. But he definitely started losing a lot more units than he lost up to that point. This is not the fight yet for Dark, right? It's so painful to see
this
these
is
super
so bad.
slow Queens off creep Dark, mate. Why are we taking this battle?
Unupgraded
got a couple
Hydras.
of little victories. This hurts, Pig. This hurts every Zerg fan out there.
Yeah, and unupgraded Hydras are a garbage unit. Incredibly expensive, fragile. If they had Groove Spines, at least maybe. But I think Dark here realizes, this is not good. He's just pinned. When you're behind in a ZVP, Stalker Oracle is a huge problem. And this is the big problem everyone that's not Serral's having right now, is no matter what the early game happens, they find themselves falling behind to a set of Stalkers and a few Oracles. And this is why you need to have a pristine opening. Dark didn't have that. He lost 4 or 5 drones to the first 2 Adepts. Those sort of mistakes are basically often game deciding in this matchup. Dark used to be able to make comebacks off this stuff, and he still can against most Protoss players. I don't think he can against someone as good as MaxPax. Let's get into map 2. Psystorm Gaming's MaxPax in the top right side of the map with an excellent game 1. He's going to send a probe across very early. And the reason this is a good idea against Dark is because he never really, or very rarely, cuts workers to build his hatchery and get it on location. He just takes his third at a minute and a half sometimes, you know, tries to hatch block you. So MaxPax is going to go there and try to prompt that. Now, Dark moving out with the drone is going to make MaxPax think he's getting hatch blocked. If he sees the drone, he's going to either think, okay, I'm either getting hatchery blocked or he's taking the third. And Dark is going to hatch block, but it's not just to delay the hatchery. It is going to be to build in the wall off and actually obstruct MaxPax from defending. The question though, Roddy, can you even fit a hatchery in that wall off? I don't even know if there's a good spot. I think you might have to build it just above the pylon.
No, I think that fits. I think that barely fits. MaxPax checked the third for a bit. Now he's checking the center. Now he's going to check that base at 9 o'clock. And he's like, wait a minute. But now he should have seen that drone already on this side of the map. There is very little vision, but there comes the hatchery. It does perfectly fit. And now I really wonder how MaxPax is going to deal with this. He's going to warp in a second gate. Could potentially drop an early forge as well. I kind of like it, but obviously that does seem like overreacting to some people. Just double gate. Okay, yeah, that is actually still one hell of this very sexy wall off. And if that Zealot just pops on the right side, I would never put it on the left side. I think that'd be silly. You just put it on the right side. It is in a safe spot. It can get surrounded, and it can actually attack the hatchery.
I mean, I think Dark's already won. He's forced MaxPax to build a hero wall, man. You can't win with a hero wall. Actually, this is more of a Roddy wall, to be fair, right? Trying to bait the Bane Bust, yeah?
I'm loving this for Max, mate. I feel like Max has an excellent reaction to it. It all just worked out in the end. Sometimes I feel like you need to get a tiny bit fortunate. I have games where everything fits perfectly, and then I had games where I'm like, oh my god, for the life of me, I can never ever save this. MaxPax is going to end up losing one of his gates. That will open up the wall, but these will be slow Zerglings. These will continue to be slow Zerglings for a long time. We even have extra drones showing up to build a couple spine crawlers. I mean, this is all-out aggression. I think MaxPax could maybe use a couple probes here. You don't want to lose Zealots, because the Zealot DPS is very important to prevent these spines from finishing up.
Probes being pulled. He doesn't want to let the spines get up. One Zealot goes down. That's a lot of DPS falling. The next one going down. The Zergling's going to fight with the probes. The Adept, of course, will deal with pretty much unlimited slow Zerglings. I like the pullback micro for MaxPax, but he still loses 2 of them. Unfortunately, Dark Zerglings, I think, are trapped down there. They're popping out in like a bit of a cage. The spine crawlers, though, at least get time, bought here in order to get up. And those spines are going to take out everything on the natural. So this is going to really ruin MaxPax's setup. And he's going to have to rebuild all of his tech in his main. A disaster until you think about the economy. 20 workers versus 10. MaxPax can absolutely give up his natural and still be fine in this game. Dark has nothing at home. He has no queen. He has no follow-up. Those Adepts could even commit to the base trade if they want, once he gets something else in the main base. If he gets one Adept in the main, he can shade across and kill every drone.
Yeah, but I don't think you want to do that. I think the number one priority here for MaxPax is make sure creep does not make it up to the high ground. Because these spines are going to be very annoying, but these will be slow Zerglings. And 3 Adepts will be able to kill an infinite amount of slow Zerglings as long as we keep them alive. He is going to shade them out. I think that's a tiny bit risky. I guess we have 1 Adept in our in our main base, right? Yeah, near a battery. I guess that's okay, because probes can also battle. These 2 Adepts might be a brilliant call. MaxPax is supply blocked for a little bit, so he can't build that Immortal yet, but it is able to start up now. Yeah, how do you deal with 2 Adepts, Pig, when you don't have Zergling speed?
Yeah, well, basically here, you need to send Lings in the main, make MaxPax look elsewhere, and then screw up his multitasking. This worked about 80% of the time before 2015 in Starcraft 2. In 2025, 10 years later than that, 15 years in the history of the game, I do not expect MaxPax to let these Adepts get surrounded, but let's see. Dark is a wizard. Let's see if he can find that surround on creep. The Adepts go too deep, and he gets the surround!
MaxPax absolutely did not expect Dark to have so many slow Zerglings. But I mean, that's big for Dark. That gives him a tiny shot, but it still looks rough. Because an Immortal is obviously very good against Spine Crawlers. Triple Spine is going to start working on the Nexus. It wouldn't hurt MaxPax if he had even more batteries than just these two. But obviously he lost the Cyber Core, right? He lost everything on the low ground, so he can't build a Cyber Core. He's rebuilding a gateway. These two batteries really have their work cut out for themselves. But we do have energy recharge. It's going to be a fun one, but Double Immortal. Double Immortal actually starts becoming decent against Zerglings as well, right? It's just going to make their way through so quickly. It's really cool what Dark is doing here, but he is going to have to get all the crazy damage done. And I just don't know if that's doable.
He's got to shift quick these probes. Yeah, good micro against the probes. Getting the probes, that's where the Zerglings can get surface area. Because it's all about surface area. With slow Zerglings, they're very slow. It's hard to ever get a wrap around on the Immortals. You see the energy recharge being used on the battery. These Immortals going to be getting so many kills. It's already 20 kills between the two Immortals. 5 on one, Nexus 14, 15 on the other. The Nexus is incredibly damaged. If the Nexus goes down, MaxPax is probably dead unless he can make a Warp Prism and then just win with Immortals and a Warp Prism, which is actually very possible. The Nexus getting dangerously low. The Spine Crawler's damaging it. The Queens and the Zerglings are just going to fight here. The Spines have targeted the Nexus. He realizes that's the money. And Dark takes him down, which means MaxPax, unless he cancels the Warp Prism, he cannot rebuild. He's going to try and win with 3 Immortals, a handful of probes, and a Warp Prism. And to be fair, honestly, I don't know if you can stop this with slow Zerglings. The Warp Prism will give unlimited micro potential. This game's going to be a banger.
Yeah, this is actually insane because MaxPax lets the Prism finish. Oh, he can't lose any workers though, right? I feel like every single worker is important. Killing this hatch is important.
He just killed his own probe.
Yeah, what MaxPax also needs to worry about, he builds another Immortal, it's because he wants Immortal number 4. But what Max also needs to worry about is that he doesn't get eliminated, right? You can obviously micro your Immortals all day, every day on the other side of the map. But if there are 12 Zerglings attacking your buildings, you're on a serious clock. And he has 70 minerals left. That's not even enough to build a single Vespian Geyser. What a scenario here. 3 Immortals and a Prism. I mean, that is infinite micro potential. 1 Queen, a couple slow Zerglings. Not often do we favor the guy with no money for a Nexus and 0 mining, but I kind of do right now, Pig.
Dark, I love you, mate. I don't care if you win or lose this game. You've already forced something truly amazing for us to watch. But dude, MaxPax Immortal micro. The Immortal and the Prism, you need like 4 or 5 Queens to really put pressure on this. Yeah. With only 1 Queen, it's going to be so hard. Second Queen's on the way. I mean, you've got income. He doesn't, but it's just the Warp Prism with the ranged pickup is one of the most insane things ever added to StarCraft. It is like such a good way for players to express their skill.
The Prism?
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, it's in the red. It's in the red.
If he gets the Prism, he really has a real shot. Then we are so allowed to dream. And Queens do have a little bit of a speed boost on creep. Zerglings battling the probes right now. Every second that goes by does allow Dark to get some energy on these Queens. Does allow Dark to get more links, but he's already been losing so many links. MaxPax knows how dangerous it would be to lose this Warp Prism. The micro is still good. It is 4 freaking Immortals. 3rd Queen on the way. Can we get that Warp Prism snipe one time and one time only? It's not starting to look like it. GG gets called, and the man with 0 probes and 0 mining for the last minute and a half of this game gets the 2-0 victory and advances into the playoffs of PiGFest 5.
The kills on those Immortals were sick, by the way. I'm just doing a quick kill count at the end. One of them had, this is like about 30 seconds before the end, 32 kills, 25 kills, 18 kills. I think this one ended up on 35 at the end of that game. Those Immortals got the business done. You can see a 10-worker Zerg just does not have the tools to deal with that. Really well played by MaxPax. Gets the 2-0 despite Dark getting cheesy and in his face. Alright, guys. We've got Dark in the top right side. It's the final deciding match here of Group D. We're going to see who is going to die in this group. Who's going to be removed from the tournament? Who's going to get 2nd place in the group? And, of course, that seed into the losers bracket of the playoffs. Classic in the bottom left side, playing as Protoss. Going to be going for a very conservative Gateway Scout, a build order that's gained popularity recently. We saw Zaun opting for this a lot as well. And I think after you've seen Dark's last game against MaxPax, probably a good idea.
Yeah, the last game was wild with the hatchery in the Wolof. Looking forward to seeing how Classic is going to play. Classic obviously is a fan as well of Oracles and Adepts in the early game. I think he's rather conservative. Some of the Protoss players are willing to just absolutely YOLO it and always try to take that risk for that extra drone. Classic, I think, is very well aware of how important it is to keep them alive. Mid game is also not mega crazy when it comes from Classic side in general. It's like, of course he'll poke, of course he'll apply pressure, but I don't think he's all about creating the chaos and having 3-4 different fights at once, because I think that's where Dark outshines him a little bit. For Classic, it's going to be a lot about just continuing to scout, figuring out what the hell Dark is cooking up on the other side of the map, and then making the right calls at home. And if he ever finds himself 4 bases, maxed out, good upgrades, and a couple storms, I think he's loving life. But getting there, that's going to be the real challenge.
Yeah, I mean, I was saying it earlier in the analysis, and I'll restate it again for those who are just tuning in now. I think the worst thing you can do against Dark is get overly reactive. And what I mean by that is sometimes players will be so afraid of him doing that Queenling Nidus or his, Queen drop Roach Ravager Zergling all in, one of these fast attacks, that they start to invest way too much in early production, but then they're so afraid of attacking into Dark because he does like to play with such a big army and he's so unpredictable, they don't then invest in the actual army to pressure. So if you do something like a 6-gate blink, you have to go get aggressive against Dark. And if you've got a good opening, I do think there's windows. That being said, I expect Dark to be having a light and day difference in his early game against Classic here to against MaxPax. Classic's very good with the Adept Oracle, but MaxPax is one of the best in the world. I think MaxPax and Hero getting through the first 4 minutes unscathed is so rare for any Zerg players, even the best in the world, right? Without losing a few drones here or there and having creep tumors picked off and Zerglings go down. So for me, the question mark is if Dark can just have a way smoother opening, does he have the momentum to start throwing out random big muta switches, crazy surprising Roach Maxes, and basically put Classic on his toes? Because ZVP is a matchup where if you get a good start and then you surprise your opponent with your next step, it can look like it's almost imbalanced in your favor.
Absolutely. Dark has a few links keeping track of this first Adept as the Oracle is about to come out. 2 Adepts. Let's see how good Classic his movement is. MaxPax obviously found a crazy good start on at home, but that was a start where he forced Dark to expand on the low ground, and that obviously changes everything a little bit already. Means that it's going to be a tiny bit easier for these Adepts to get close and get in range of those rounds. So far, nothing really to be found on Classic side. I said he was conservative. I gotta say this is very, very conservative. He didn't truly try once, right, even before Zergling speed was done. But hey, maybe it's just all about getting that good setup going. Wants to make sure he's got a bit of extra firepower at home. Having the Adepts at home makes it easier to pay full attention to your Oracle, because you've got some DPS, so the few links that could annoy you, it's nothing to be too worried about. And even fire up a 3rd Oracle, Pig.
Yeah, we were talking about the 3rd Oracle yesterday and how, some players question it. Raynor especially saying he's not really a big believer. He thinks just 1 or 2 is plenty. And I do agree that I think 2 Oracles generally is a bit better unless you're getting damage done. And if we can find damage, this is all fine. But it's all predicated on that. If he doesn't find any damage, then it's rough. 1 drone goes down. Oh, great Spore Tricks on the rally there for Dark. And the Spore Crawler keeps that natural alive. The Oracles have to pull out. Zerglings run in, but the Adepts do deflect it. That is 4 Adepts, and they're going to join up with these Oracles on this side of the map. And I think this has been the cool addition in this matchup is Protoss players joining the Adepts and the Oracles together so consistently. This is something where, I don't know, maybe it's because Neeb retired. I feel like Neeb was always one of the best at just doing these little twists with his harassment, like mixing Adepts and Oracles together, then splitting them apart, then rejoining them. He was one of the first players in Legacy to really figure out how to use these units together against Zerg as well, and ruined a lot of people's days for a long time. But the players are getting better and better at abusing that, and the Oracle's a lovely dive for Classic. That's what we're looking for. Wow, 5 drones.
Dark had an excellent save earlier with those drones that were being transferred from the main to the natural. That's so many Zerglings, by the way, with Overlord speed 70-80% done. It is starting to look like Dark wants to be very aggressive. Now, Classic has gone up to 6 gateways without a fort. Good news for Classic is that he's going to be able to make a lot of units. Bad news is that he can't build any cannons. I kind of feel like he doesn't really have anything that's going to be Omega good. And here come the Queens as well. They're going to get picked up. The good old German Uber, the German taxi, as we like to call this build. Going to be tough for Classic. He's going to have a lot of unit, a lot of gateway production. But what is so difficult is that nothing is going to be particularly good against Zerglings.
Baneling Nest goes down in the back there for Dark, so he's going to have an ability to bust through batteries and things later on. For now, he probably wants to just drop across the wall off as a common way. Lings flood the front, Queens drop on the other side, and overwhelm. Stasis Trap tries to go down on top of them. The Queens, you could drop in hot pickup, but Ling's going to go for a big surround on all the Adepts and Stalkers. Oracles rotate, Queens aren't quite there. Fighting underneath Oracles is always dangerous, but the Queens drop in, and they do start to damage. Good pullback on the Zerglings for Dark. You can see how much damage all these Gateway units put out. My lord, that's so many Stalkers, but they aren't very good against the Zerglings. So trying to pull back now. Blink is ready, going to start pulling back the weak ones. The Oracles are mincing these Zerglings, but the energy is running low. I don't think Dark's done enough damage. His link count's gone. His Queens are going to get overrun. And 6-gate Blink, I mean, this is an excellent build to preempt this sort of style. Dark, being a bit predictable, he's known for being obsessed with this sort of timing attack. Classic, by going 6-gate Blink before Forge, he was blindly preparing to shut down exactly this sort of attack.
Oracle's a little bit low on energy right now. The final few Zerglings actually found more than all the initial Zerglings. I mean, they both had a lot of money while this was happening. Clearly a very stressful situation. But if we drop a Baning Nest and if we go for all-out aggression, battling against a bunch of Stalkers and Batteries and Oracles while having 1,000 minerals 6 minutes into the game, that's a few too many, Pick. That could have been a lot of additional Queens. There could have been extra Zerglings as well. Dark clearly was just sitting on too much. And twice he thought, I have the wraparound that my sweet Zerg dreams are made of. So he really committed, but it wasn't a total wraparound. It was like 60-70%. And then Classic was still able to save those Stalkers even before Blink was done. And in the end, Classic made this look easy. Well, I don't think it ever should have been easy. Dark Macro really slipping a little bit there in the midst of that attack. I don't know why that happened, but 1,000 minerals while you're all-inning is way too many this early into the game.
100%, and now Classic, he's on the warpath, man. These Stalkers are pushing forward. The Queens and the Hydras are running into trouble, and the Zerglings coming down as well. Classic pushing forward with his Stalkers. Dark is going to go down there in that map, and I think that, you know, it really is studying the opponent and preparing for them. I was saying the pitfall before, like earlier in the game, I was like, if you go 6-gate Blink to be safe against his crazy shenanigans and then you sit 2 defensive, it can be really bad. But Classic never even got to that point in the game because the attack was already in his face from so early on. And I think spotting these Queens coming forward was really nice. You know, he just barely saw them at the gold base. If he didn't see that coming, this might have been a lot harder. So perhaps Dark could have distracted him by being a bit more active with his Zerglings, but it's difficult because Classic was just so well turtled up at home, always had Adepts in his third, and the Stalker in his natural wall-off. Great defense in game 1 by Classic. Alright guys, Dark went for the expansion here at the start, but Classic was blocking it with an early probe. Dark never sends the drone down early for this, and Classic, if he studied his opponent, he knows Dark will almost always be prompted to hatch block. So you have to pull a probe down at about a minute and block it with that probe. Otherwise, you're going to get hatchery blocked. And if you block it, this opening for Dark is really bad. And the fact that he keeps doing it so predictably is actually one of his biggest weaknesses. But Classic did not study Dark enough before this. Whoa, is that me, mate? Are you...
No, it's Rex.
Rex's computer! Oh, no! Is it SC2 Rex, his Twitch stream?
Yes, but
all right, we need to everyone go donate twitch.tv/_SC2 Rex. You get over there, help him get a new PC because it seems like his stream's dying. He says sorry, no worries, it is what it is.
I love how you are like me, by the way, because you had an issue in the very first game of the tournament, and now you've just been paranoid for 3 days.
Super paranoid.
It's like, is it me? Is it me? It's like, I'm the exact same. I have one disconnect in like 84 hours, and I'm like, oh my god, I'm so afraid to stream right now. Or one time Battle.net freezes up, you're like, it's me, right? It must be me. It must be me. Like...
Every stream now, I'm like closing every random app on my computer, closing random browser tabs. I'm like restarting my PC before we go live. I'm like, no more tech issues. Come on.
No, like you had literally had one tiny issue in the very beginning of the tournament. Game 1 of the tourney. I think since then, Pig, we've done like 28 games. It's not you, mate. You can relax. You can just enjoy. It's not you.
All right, I've never done that before. I just gave the players a countdown on the lag screen before clicking the drop button. I guess that makes sense. Looks like both players were, you know, attentive at their keyboard, so it works out. Nice pylon block for Classic. I think that's pretty huge. And he's going to have to pull the probes. Yeah, I feel like recently Hero started doing this after playing Dark 400 times and having him do this build. Hero realized if he pulls the probe down to block the hatchery going down, you have to pull a second probe, of course, because a drone beats a probe in a head-to-head fight. It kind of ruins Dark's opening, because if Dark has to take his third hatchery at a minute 50, like he does in this game, and he doesn't delay your Nexus, it's so bad of an opening for Dark. And it's actually one of his biggest weaknesses in this matchup is that he keeps doing this opening, and it puts him behind a lot of the time. So I know I'm very vocally critical of Dark's early game build order optimization, but this is one of his most abusable points, and it's why Hero's been dominating him recently.
but we all know that you love Dark and you love them roaches, Piggy.
It's a good meme, but it checks out. I think that was my introduction to commentating 2015, guys, was excitedly groaning about Dark's roaches on the big stages. And what can I say? I will never live that one down. And I'm okay with it. I do still get a bit randy when I see Dark massing roaches and thrusting them into a Protoss face.
It's a good thing to be known for, mate. Sometimes I still think about it. Whenever I see a couple of roaches, I'm like, oh, we're going to roll that R for a long, long time. I'm going to try to make Big proud. I will never introduce Dark as just Dark, but it will always just be Dark.
Dark.
I love it, matey. Zergling speed on the way here, as Dark is going to keep tabs on this Adept, and Classic is not just going to throw it away. Yeah, it doesn't seem like this accomplishes a whole lot for Dark, but if he keeps doing it, there must be something about it that he loves that is maybe not that obvious. Maybe it's just because he somehow ends up winning games and he's like, must be the start. It's like, nah, that's just because you come up with really cool stuff in the mid game and you find clever ways to kill your opponent.
I mean, I think if Classic lets him get the hatchery, I think it just messes the build up for both players, and that does favor Dark. So I think when they don't react with like the preemptive, double pro block to stop the hatchery going down like Hero's been doing, I think this is great. I think if you think of Classic, if you were controlling the players and betting on them, and you're like, okay, I'm betting on Classic. Do I want him to have a clean start with no obstructions against Dark, or do I want them both to be a bit messed up in their build order? I mean, you want the clean opening as a Classic fan, and you want the messy opening as a Dark fan, because Dark is his only practices with messy build orders. He's actually better the messier the game is. And look at this. Ling Flood tries to come in. Adepts are there in the wall off, though. And with the Oracle about to come out, I think Classic's, his third's delayed, but I think he's adapted well to kind of the way the build has been adapted. Hasn't left a big opening for Dark. On the other hand, Dark happily droning. As long as he adds an Overlord or two in the next few seconds, doesn't take damage to the Oracle, which he's been good at defending so far, I think he's in an excellent position.
Yeah, I gotta give it to Classic though. He's definitely been clean so far in these two games, right? Like in the first game, we didn't really spot any mistakes. It was safe, it wasn't crazy, and he wasn't like YOLOing in, trying to pull off all the crazy moves, but he has just not made any errors. This has been very clean gaming by Classic. He could have maybe made a slip up there, and those Adepts could have been surrounded, and he ends up losing one of them. That doesn't happen. He's just scouting a lot, and he's making sure he doesn't mess up at home. He's not leaving the door open. It's all simple, but it's clean, and it makes sense, and it starts adding up, and it will allow him to eventually be in that position that he's obviously favored in the ultra late game if he can get there and just stabilize him. To me, this is a very smart way of playing the series, giving the strengths of these two guys.
100%. Dark is getting supply blocked on 58. He only built one Overlord, so he's supply blocked again on 66. This is not the most optimal macro for Dark in this game, but Classics, Oracles whiff completely, pulling the drones away. The Spore got massive damage, and this is Dark's greediest build. He's got to be, if you're a Dark fan, you are so happy with where this game's going. He's going to rush Hydras the moment that layer's done. He's going to go +1 range, and he's going to go for 70 drone Hydra Ling, and then he's going to do this kind of like odd half-committed Hydra Ling attack to kill the Protoss 4th while going for a delayed Hive. It's a really good build if he gets away with the opening. What punishes this is Glaive Adepts. There is no Glaive Adepts. This is a regular Adept pressure. The other two Oracles are already heavily damaged. He's got a lot of Zerglings. I think Dark should be very well set up to rush the Hydras and get away with this greedy opening, skipping all sorts of early defense. No Roaches, no Banelings, nothing like that.
And no Glaive Adept, but if it's 7 or 6 Adepts on this side of the map and triple Oracle can help out, that's still something you absolutely have to respect as a Zerg. But because those two Oracles earlier took so much damage in the main, just when we gave Classic some compliments on how clean it's all been, it was just so awkward because the Queens were on the left and then the Sport Roll is on the right. And he's like, do I go for it? Do I not go for it? Do I retreat? But if I retreat, I fly over the Queens. And you can see that Classic had a tiny sheer moment of panic there. And that allowed him to take a lot of damage on these Oracles. Kind of just made everything a bit more awkward. Because that amount of Adepts, even without Glaives, if the Oracles are healthy, you can really create a serious problem for the Zerg. But if the Oracles are already so wounded, you can't quite commit to it. And now he's kind of left over with a whole bunch of Adepts that don't have Glaive and haven't done anything other than forcing out some units. Now, if they start shooting at Lings and Hydras, and that's pretty much all that Dark has right now, they'll still be somewhat useful. But obviously not what Classic had in mind with all these Adepts.
No, not at all. Was hoping to force a bit more of a response. Forced a lot of Lings, at least that's something. The Oracles, oh my gosh, Classic with some sloppy moves. That almost looked like an F2 there in response to the Zerglings. Cool change in Dark's strategy. He always, for the few weeks, went grooved spines, the range on the Hydras first, but he's changed to movement speed, which is what Serral and a lot of the Europeans prefer, the mobility on the Hydras. So he's kind of changed his thinking on that by the looks of it, and that is going to allow the Hydras to potentially jump on top. He's already breaking the rocks. He's actually doing this off just 62 drones. Normally it's off 70 workers where he masses Hydra Link, but he's already got 18 Hydras out, and oh my gosh, Classic, careful, mate.
Dark's army looks good here, and I don't really know what Classic does to battle it. Like, I know Blinkstalkers can shine, but these are not the numbers where I think the Blinkstalkers are really going to make the difference. Trying to buy some time with Stasis Preppies is a smart move. Dark is going to step into a big one. There's another one there that doesn't quite get activated yet. Will get activated in the end. Yeah, you need the links there as well. Just the Hydras alone, I think that's a little bit too risky. High Templars get warped in. Starts up Storm. I mean, if we get Storm, we're obviously cooking, but that's going to take a little while. This army of Dark is already here, Pig.
Yeah, and the Hydra's looping around the left. You do not want to pull back on the left. He has to go to the right side, which means those Hydras can march forward. Fourth Nexus is going to be gone, and he can go towards the natural as well. I almost doesn't even want to stop for the Nexus. Lings are going to flood into the natural right now. Uh-oh, it's a hero welcome committee. That is a wide open natural. Hydras and Lings jumping on top. The Archon's going to go down. It gets popped. And Classic, right for the harvesting. The Protoss is getting ravaged. Oracles try to defend the probes, but they're getting absolutely minced by the Zerglings. And look at the way he focuses the warping in Stalkers that can't blink yet. Great play by Dark. Really nicely done opening for him. Skipping the Roaches, gets super greedy, takes no damage for the Oracles. And as I was saying at the start of this series, if you get a good early game and you surprise your opponent with something, this matchup can feel really one-sided and almost unfair. And we've kind of seen that, you know, in Classic's direction, now in Dark's direction. I'm hoping for a bit more of an even opening going into the mid-game for map 3. All right, game 3, the final match of Group D to see who is getting that second place spot. It's Ultra Love for the map, and thankfully syncing up with the map, Dark has spawned as the red player in the top side of the map, which has the red animations off the edges of the map. And in the bottom left side, with the blue side, it is Classic. We can't actually control where the players spawn, but it is good to see that it's kind of synced up with the map. There's a lot of blue lightning on the southern side of the map, whereas there's kind of red lightning and energy storms on the far top side as well. It is going to be a PvZ. You were talking about how the different inflection points in that game, Roddy, and I can't agree with you more. If you do damage with the Oracles, you know, you do damage with the Adepts, you force more of a response. The Blink Stalkers off 6 gate can then come in, start trading when there's like barely any Hydras out with no upgrades yet. You can start trading really nicely, and it looks good, and you don't need to have a fast storm. But if you don't do any damage and you let him rush straight to Hydras like that, you better have rushed Psy Storm or some sort of splash damage to deal with it. So it's, you know, essentially Classic committed to a bunch of things that did not find damage. I love the way his drone is just hiding here, refusing to get spotted by this probe. And it does get spotted as it heads down there. But I like that this time around Classic made the adjustment, doesn't let the hatchery block go down as, oh my gosh, someone's lagging.
I don't see it. I had a little lag spike earlier, but it's not too bad right now.
Yeah, just had a spike for a few seconds. Hopefully,
okay, this
time
it may have been you, Pig. I'm not trying to make you paranoid, but it was all fine for us. But you didn't pop up or anything, so in that way, we're all good.
As long as there's no evidence, you know, there's no proof unless the pop-up comes up. That's all that matters to me.
It was way earlier as well than you said it. I had a bit of a lag spike, but that's just the lag spike that I have from the Netherlands to Korea.
Yeah.
But that shouldn't pop up for the players. Nobody should feel that. But when you got scared, that was nothing, mate. Nothing to worry about.
Chat says, Pig, you got something downloading? Yeah, it's just your mum's OnlyFans, Pickies, mate. Get wrecked, guy in the chat. Anyway, moving on to the commentary. Sorry, guys, it's the final game. It's an important match. I'll be professional for a moment. This is actually, I think, a pretty good kind of handling of the early game by Classic, right? The hatchery was really delayed. This messes up Dark Soul opening. He can't even build the Queen because his Overlord's so late. He has to wait for the hatchery basically to unsupply block himself. He tries to counter it by going quick 3 hatchery. But this does feel like, yeah, your Stargate's like maybe 10 seconds later than normal, but you're still going to have a good Adept timing across the map. I think, like, especially if you want to chrono the second Adept, I'd love to see a chrono on the second Adept, but he's not going to go for it. And just going to play a bit more conservative as Classic, focusing on those probes.
Yeah, even if Dark was not able to morph this drone into a hatchery, keeping it around for a little while, distracting your opponent, keeping him busy, and also getting the confirmation that it's a Stargate is nice. Like, yeah, it is Stargate 8 out of 10 times these days, 9 out of 10 times. But once in a while, Classic will still hit you, right? With a 4-gate Warp Prism Resonating Glaive Adept build. And if you've got no units at all, that becomes a real problem if you're sitting there with 2 Spore Crawlers and you're like, wait, they're supposed to build oracles over here, Piggy. So it's the small things that you can still take a little W from here with the drone going down in the end. But knowing that there was a Stargate and knowing it's most likely going to be Oracle first.
Indeed. Not too bad there, having that information. Link speed's on the way. Going to go for 8 Zerglings. Just 4. The Adepts could finish the Shade here. Yeah, using the Mineral Line kind of nicely, but the Ling's got a bit of a wraparound. Good wriggle with those Adepts to make sure he moves through. And oh my gosh, the Adept defense has not been on point for Dark today. 5 drones go down again. That's way too much damage. Dude, look at the worker count. 22 against 37. Oh, Lord.
We do have 3 hatcheries, fortunately, and we had a lot of larva, so he's going to be able to recover from that rather quickly. But, of course, 5 drones is way too many. 2 is acceptable, not ideal. 3 is already a win for the Protoss. Anything more than 3, there are Zerg players who would leave at this point, where they're like, no, this game is over. Fortunately, Dark will never do that over here in the final game of Day 3 of the Pig Festival. But not what he was looking for. Does find something with his links, and the one thing that you can say is that he doesn't have to worry anymore about these Adepts thinking of the Oracles a bit later. Yeah, just rough. There's no other way to put it. That's just rough, but Dark's gonna have to keep it together and just try to drone up safely. And you can always clean it up against the Oracles. And if we save drones as well as we did on Erholm, I believe it was, right? That first... Where was it? Where they morphed everything into spores.
Yeah.
And he can still dream. Like, this is good. Excellent follow-up here by Dark. Queen's in a 10 out of 10 position. Does real damage to the Oracles that didn't even manage to activate Pulsar Beam. So, that's a little interaction like that makes you almost forget about those first 2 Adepts that just killed too many drones.
100%, mate. Oh, and it's going to be delayed Glaives coming in for Classic. That's a very late Glaives. But, I mean, the game is so slowed down by everything that's happened. So, just because benchmark-wise it's late, it doesn't mean it's the biggest issue. He does see a Roach Warren, and he's going to be like, damn, Roach Warren Evo, the one game where Dark plays safe is where I'm going for Glaives. Some British players might back out of it, but not him. He's going to go for the 5-gate Glaives no matter what, and I do think it's usually very hard for Dark to defend these pushes. He's going for a 4th hatchery, trying to recover. I do think Dark should be activating his Super Saiyan mode right now. He plays so good from behind. If it was any other player, I'd just be talking about how they're probably dead. Don't be, surprised if this game just ends suddenly. And it still should happen. Classic is so far ahead, he should have a big lead. But if Dark can sniff out what's happening and start making roaches, he'll be okay.
No.
Unfortunately, he's massing Ling drone, and that is not going to be good when these Adepts move out.
Yeah, for a split second, I was like, I don't think I hate it that much for Dark. If he goes heavy into Roach production at this point, he should be able to somewhat deal with these Adepts, and then perhaps he can counter in a devastating way, but he is still building drones, Pig. It's not just these 4 Adepts,
no.
It is over 10 Adepts with Resonating Glaive finishing up. This is going to be very, very painful for Dark. Eventually, Roaches should help to clean this up, but not before. These Adepts should always find really good fights against the Lings, against the Queens. Nice full wall, but this many Adepts are just gonna gun down an Evo chamber. Lings are in the middle of nowhere. Roaches still not out. I mean, you always lose 15, 20 drones here, but honestly, at this point, if Dark only ends up losing 20 workers, I would almost say this is a win.
Yeah, Dark is deep in the well right now. He's got to dig himself out. Oracles on the front with the Adepts. Oh, lovely pressure here for Classic. Completely denying mining in the main and getting amazing damage on that 3rd as well. He's going to go for the natural with the divey dive. The Adept still dancing around. He doesn't even need to do more direct damage, honestly. You can just transition and just keep the Adepts alive, keep denying mining as Classic. But of course he is not done. The drones on the 3rd getting hammered. The Adepts are getting absolutely destructive in the Zerg economy. The spawning pool is going down, and you're not meant to see a spawning pool go down to Adepts.